Well, hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to Live with Leslie. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. And I'm Leslie Vitel, business strategist and mentor, specifically for functional nutrition and medicine practitioners in private practice. And I'm delighted to have you here with us today. So, for those of you who are working with women, specifically in the area of optimizing digestion, reducing inflammation, you are definitely in the right place today. Today, we're going to be chatting with Dr. Kate Ricciardi from Digestion by Design. Digestion by Design. I love that name. Specifically about inflammation, the invisible instigator, and the core strategies that she is integrating into her private practice to help her clients move forward and really thrive in their lives. And specifically, we'll be chatting a little bit about her program called Digestion by Design. And that is a 3-month program. So we'll chat about that a little bit as well. And just a quick heads up, if you want to learn more about Kate and her work, you can follow her on Instagram at Digestion by Design. So Kate, welcome.
Thank you.
Delighted to
Happy to
have
be
you here
here.
today.
Yes, thank
Now,
you.
I'm really excited to dig in to your background because you have a very unique background. I didn't read your very impressive bio. I thought it would be a little more interesting just to talk through it.
Okay.
But Kate has a doctorate in physical therapy, and she's also a licensed RD. And so, what a highly, highly unique background. So, give us a little bit of insight into, what did you do first? Was it the nutrition? Was it the physical therapy? And what, compelled you to move, add a whole extra degree onto your bio?
Yeah. So started as a dietitian. So I had always, had that background of wanting to get into the health, like what is, in this ingredients, just more in like the crunchy realm, I would say, before that really became a thing, just caring about what I ate, exercise. Like I was a runner when I was younger. Well, I still am, but it was just taking dance and doing all the things. Like I cared about what I ate, wanted to be healthy and strong and all that kind of stuff. Ran track. And so I did the dietitian thing for a while. I was in the clinical setting. I started out in a nursing home. So I did the long-term care. And it was really, if you want to advance your career, you're going to be in the kitchen, managing the kitchen, which is not the path that I wanted to take. I did that, working in a kitchen in a nursing home when I was in undergrad, just working my way through school. And it's like, this is not the path that I want to be. So I felt like there was really a ceiling there. And it's like, what else is next? I knew I was still wanted to go on. Like, I like being in school. I like learning. And so, that was just what's the next best step that makes the most sense. And so physical therapy then seemed to be the best logical step for me as far as my interest of things and how I really can put both of those things together. And then my personal, life and experiences of having a car accident, needing
Oh,
my own
yeah.
PT for like 4 months, maybe migraines. I
Okay.
mean, I was going to all the places, chiropractor, I was doing all the things, the like medical massage, and those migraines were just brutal. And so that was
Oh
really a
gosh,
big,
that's so hard.
yeah, like, okay, here's my personal testimony where physical therapy actually really helped me. And so that was
So that
where
was
I
that was the trigger for you to move into that space. So did you ever work specifically in physical therapy?
Yep. And so I went back into the geriatric setting. So my PT career was in assisted living, independent living, memory care, and I just have a, special place in my heart for that, 65 and plus, 65 and older population. And
Okay.
so many people were like, why do you want to go there? Don't you want to do orthopedics? And just, I feel like there's the quality of life. Like these people need care and respect. And that was just, yeah, my drive, my place to be. So
Okay. Okay. Super interesting background.
yeah.
And I know before we click that live button, we were talking about how you might potentially, maybe someday, be able to integrate the two areas of specialization.
Yeah, I feel like with digestion, the things that I talk to my clients about are, your posture, super important. If you're sitting at a computer all day, you're doing your job, what does that look like? How can that eventually, the repetitive motion, what that can be doing to your organs? And when I was a PT, well, I still am, but when I was working in the clinic like that, there were so many conversations that would come up around food. It's like, okay, here we are, we're working on your balance, but this is what I'm eating and this is what it's doing to me and this is how I feel. I saw a lot of, elderly residents with balance issues, a lot of sodium issues. And so my conversations always turned back towards food in one way or another. So all these different ways to really integrate things of how you're eating now will affect you when you're 70, right? Like you got to do the work now if you want, how do you want to age, and asking those questions. So that's a really interesting topic because people don't really think about that. And I don't know. I haven't really thought about what I want my retirement to look like because I'm still working and I'm just in it
Hard to
trying to
picture.
survive the day. So it's like, yeah, these are things, how you set things up now, what you're eating, how you're digesting, what you're absorbing, can set the stage for what your bones are looking like later. So super important.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now let's flash forward to today. So now you're in private practice, working, focusing on nutrition. How did you end up choosing your area of specialization, which, based on the name, is clearly digestion?
Right, right. So really my own history. So I can remember as far back as being 12 and having issues with what now I realize is IBS. And so I had been through the whole system, had all the tests done, being told, well, your MRI, your CT, your labs, everything looks great on paper. And it's like, I feel like I'm a mess, what's going on here? And then after having my first child and then my second, and it got worse. So I was dealing with this for like 23 years. When I did the math, and it was like that is insane.
Wow, 23
Yeah,
years of
yeah,
struggle.
yeah. And it's like, being the dietitian, there's so much, I feel like I should be able to fix myself. And I was doing the FODMAPs, I was doing the Mediterranean diet, like all the things, changing up my
Mhm.
fiber, making sure I'm really well hydrated. And it still just was not moving the needle. So I ended up really just digging, going down the rabbit hole because I couldn't get my questions answered with like conventional training and the education that I had. So getting certified for the LEAP protocol, doing the MRT on myself, that was the thing that like flipped my world upside down for the positive, where it was like, okay, I can actually go and do things without having to worry about how close the bathroom
Oh
is.
my
Like,
God. So wait, you did it on yourself,
yeah,
and it changed your world.
yep.
Amazing.
So that was really then the catalyst of if I'm struggling like this and I feel like I am just like the chain keeping my family from like taking a road trip, going here and there because things were just so unpredictable, then I have to help other people who have I know I'm not the only one who has been through all of the appointments, doing all of the tests, doing all of the things. So that was really the big driver for me. Like this
Okay.
really, and then still it took more work, gut lining and all that other stuff going through like the 5 hour protocol, but that was really the big like aha
That was
for
the
me.
aha moment for
Yeah,
you,
for
is
sure.
doing that test. That is such a great story. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know if you know this, but I did the CLT training as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was great. So, I personally used to use it like a lot. I did a lot of work in neurology.
Okay.
So I had some, really good outcomes with like multiple sclerosis and
Mhm.
those areas. So super, super interesting. Okay, so very fascinating story. Thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about, well, we talked somewhat about what inspired your journey into functional and integrative health. Um,
Mhm.
is there anything else you want to share in terms of, really how it shaped your approach to wellness?
Really just that why is this happening, what's going on, like how many stones can we uncover instead of just, well, change your diet, here's like the anti-inflammatory like turmeric, like with the MRT, turmeric can be great for some people. And I had one client specifically, joint pain. Oh, I'm taking turmeric, turmeric, turmeric.
Okay.
And then we did that test and he was really reactive. So we pulled it and then finally was one of those things that, oh my gosh, I can't
Yeah.
believe I was doing this to myself. So I feel like just being that dog with a bone of let's try to figure out all these different things, like your stress level, how are you sleeping, what is the structure of the meal that you're eating, blood sugar balance, like all these things matter. And when you really think of someone as a whole person instead of just a diagnosis and all these other factors that then affect like everything that's in this one little body that we have can be like just such a huge difference for people in their quality of life. That's really like my number one thing. What is your quality of life and how can we make that better when you're, struggling and not where you want to be?
And do you integrate all of these different elements inside of your 3 month signature program? Like you'd mentioned blood sugar, you mentioned the MRT, supplementation. Like, are these different elements that you try to include in your program?
Yeah, I really like it to be very personalized. So I'm not just going to lecture every single person that I see about the same things. Like if we don't need to worry about gallbladder health, okay, we're not going to talk about that. So whatever really comes up there. And so I have people sometimes they're like, I'm really afraid to change my foods. And so we might be taking a little bit more time in the beginning, going over perspective and mindset and what that actually looks like. And if there's habits that they want to change, like one that comes up so often is, well, I start my day with coffee. And it's like, okay, we have all these other things. Like, how is your energy? If that's what you're doing first, what does cortisol look like? So all these pieces of it come together just in a very personal way, basically like triaging
Okay.
what's most important and then how are we going to get to the other things? Yeah.
Okay. So are you integrating additional lab, like more functional lab tests into the mix? Like
So
some kind of measurement of cortisol as an example.
So if people have their labs, then we'll look at them and kind of do the comparison between, what are the standard reference ranges versus more of the functional ranges? What are we, for thyroid, what are we looking at for an optimal TSH compared to what they've been told on, their paper and all that. So I don't really do anything. Sometimes the GI map will do, just depending on
Okay.
what the suggestive symptoms look like, and that can be really, really insightful for people. So other than that, that's as far as it's gone. Like I haven't gotten into any of the like 3x4 or any of the other stuff, which I think would be
Okay.
really, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, you know what? One step at a time.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, and I don't know. I sometimes found that, well, no, let me rephrase that. Always, we need to start with basics anyway.
Right. Yep.
But there's so much that we
Hmm.
can do. Like I personally love all the data,
Yeah.
I always found that super helpful, but there's a lot we can do without all the data, right?
Right. And
When
I
it
feel
comes
like it
to
can
cleaning
be,
things up.
yeah, like really overwhelming for people too. So it's like, let's take those baby steps. Like you can't build a house without a solid foundation. So let's make sure that we have what you need buttoned up first before we start going into the weeds, so to speak. So yeah.
I love that. Yep, exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about inflammation specifically. All
Mhm.
right. So why is it such an important factor, especially, when it comes to chronic health issues? And I would also add to that, like, how are you looking at the level of inflammation? Or are you? Are you just
So
kind of more looking at symptoms?
So sometimes if people have their labs and they have that, maybe they have a little bit more of a thorough provider who's looking, we'll look at those too. So I don't order them directly, but we will talk about them. I definitely have people who go through the program and they're like, I need to know more. I want to know more. So then we'll talk about, well, you can get like the HSCRP, or maybe we need to look at your SED rate, like all those other pieces so that they can get a better understanding of themselves. So that will come up. But I feel like the standard American diet. It's just devoid of nutrients. The soil is less, nutrient dense than it used to be. So there are all these things that the deck is stacked against us in so many ways. And this omega-3, omega-6 ratio, all that kind of stuff, just
Oh,
not,
yeah. What a
there.
nightmare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's like, oh no, I don't
Especially,
want to take the fish oil. I don't like the fish oil burps or whatever. There's just kind of that mindset block when it comes to it. And it's like, okay, well, there are other ways that you can, well, what do you mean? I don't just have to take fish oil. Like there are other things that I can do. And so giving people options, right? So meet them where they are. So yeah, there are options here. We have choices. So if this is important for whatever you have going on, then here, let's do walnuts and chia seeds and hemp seeds and whatever else. So
Okay.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Do you find that people like, I guess I'm pigeonholing to a degree, but um, do they in general just I would assume they're not meeting their omega-3 needs. Are they, like standard American diet, right? It's not really very high in
Right.
omega-3s, right? Like people aren't necessarily eating fish, a few times a
Mhm.
week or whatever. Is
Right.
that what you're finding?
Yeah, that there are big gaps and it's just people
Huge.
they don't know. It's just, okay, this is what I
Don't
know.
know.
And people are
Okay.
just so busy and it's, hey, this is what I can do. And this is where I'm at. I don't even have time to think about anything else. So just tell me what I need to do. And there's a lot of that, but it's like I can tell you these things, but if you don't like it, if you have a texture, sensory thing, like there's so
Yeah.
many factors here. So that partnership really is super important. But, digestive issues, then absorbing things, we're setting up for nutrient deficiency that way too. So that also is a
Okay.
big player there.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Yeah,
Mm,
it is interesting. People just don't know, right?
no,
And even like people like us with training, I'll speak for myself. I do know, but don't always. Yeah, like it's just so easy to just kind of forget or not
yeah,
prioritize. You know what I'm
for
saying?
sure. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
because I do find that challenging sometimes, right? And I
Yeah.
theoretically at least know what I should be doing.
Right.
It's just, do I always do it? Yeah, try to.
Yeah.
It just doesn't always happen.
Right.
Um, okay, so inflammation is obviously really, really important to look at in the work that you're doing, especially when it comes to chronic health issues, right? Are there specific chronic health issues that so like when we look at the people that come to see you,
Mhm.
are based on the name of your business, I'm under the assumption that the common link is they have digestive issues. Is that fair? Or do you
That's,
also work with people that, the manifestation of inflammation is, comes up in a different way, different complaints.
yeah. So IBS, Crohn's, colitis are the big three digestive
Okay.
diagnoses for sure. Constipation is another one. So I've worked with colon hydrotherapy clinic. So there's education there and then getting just referrals that way. Like, oh, I didn't realize that there was other stuff that I can do for constipation. It's like, yeah, there's, from the nutrition lens, so much that we can look at and talk about and whatnot instead of just going for the hydrotherapy because that's like a different type of band-aid, really, when there's just one thing on top of that. But I mean, I've done talks at like a yoga studio. And so I've had people just, oh, I want to feel better. And so multiple sclerosis, I had one client with that. Um, just general wellness, like hey, I want to be on top of my game. So being the more preventative mindset, I do get a fair number of people like that, where it's just what else can I do? Let me see what the
Oh, you
data
love those
shows.
people?
Yeah, it's really great to work with because it's
Yeah.
like the conversations that you can have, that you're not starting at the foundation, you can get a
Yeah.
little bit farther along and explore that deeper. So that's always
And they're
nice.
super, yeah, I would just say in general, super
Mhm.
motivated.
Yeah,
So let's talk a little
definitely.
bit about what happens with women in midlife, right?
Mm,
I would imagine that is, I'm just guessing that you probably have a significant population that comes to see you, female midlife, right?
yep.
So what are you seeing, and what are some ways that inflammation is, I guess, impacting them, impacting
Yeah.
their symptoms? Like, what are you seeing in this population?
Brain fog is number one, the
Uh,
unexpected weight gain. I mean, I pretty much focus on women like 35 to 50. And so the
Okay.
hormone changes, like perimenopause is coming in. And
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden I'm like 10 pounds heavier than I used to be. And I feel like I'm eating the same and exercising the same. And I don't understand like what's going on. So that's always the big one. And then just feeling like focus difficulties. And so, yes, like what's going on in the gut, addressing inflammation, how that then affects hormone balance, what's going on in the liver, making sure that the liver can detox, that the liver has the nutrients that it
Okay.
needs to do what it needs to do. So I would say like brain fog, some joint pain. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm getting older now, like over 40 and just everything goes, right? That's
Mm.
always the kind of big thing. Some thyroid stuff starts to creep in. So they don't like
Oh,
really make the connection with like, oh, my hair feels thinner or eyebrows I think are getting a little bit
that's
thinner,
fitting.
things like that. Sleep, definitely, that's another big one. And it's just,
Mhm.
let's look at it from all these
It's
different,
rough.
yeah,
All those things. Like, it's like, whoa. I'm
yeah,
sure yeah, it's like getting, they feel like they got hit by a car, right? Like,
right.
just
Yep,
things just start to just feel a little out of control, I would
yep,
imagine.
yep.
What about some of the misconceptions? What are you seeing in terms of, myths or misconceptions that people have around, inflammation and the concept of an anti-inflammatory diet?
I think really the biggest thing is just that one size fits all, right? Like we
Mm.
talk about turmeric and it's just, oh, because my sister went through what you're going through and she did a low FODMAP, so that has to work for you. And then, it
Okay.
doesn't because maybe there's other inflammatory components going on, or maybe, one person is way more stressed than the other, how they're sleeping, like all these different factors. So I really feel like that cookie cutter, just here's a diet for a diagnosis is such like the old way of doing
Mhm.
things. And we're just so still, even like on social media now too, it's just everyone has like really high cortisol. And so here's your ashwagandha and that's it. Whereas, that can be creating issues for people. But I remember the first time I took ashwagandha, it made my legs numb. And it was
Oh
like
my
the
gosh.
yeah, I freaked out. I was like, what is going on here? And then finally figured
Oh,
out like what, new have I been exposed to? I wasn't anywhere. So just kind of going through the order of events and everything. I was like, it has to be that. So I pulled it and then that went away. It's like,
that
okay,
is
right.
wild.
Yes. So I always tell people, like, you can try it. Don't invest in like the 250 capsules of something. Like, let's go for the smaller one
Okay.
just because. And then when you get into herbs, I mean, there's so much with
Oh
all of that,
gosh.
and it's just
I
not
think that's
everything
really
works
complicated.
for everybody. Yeah, for sure. So
Hmm.
I think that's
Yes.
that's my biggest thing is just the diet for a diagnosis and
Realization.
yeah,
And
yep.
not everything is going to work for everybody, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
really, it really is where the personalized medicine and just personalized nutrition comes into
Yeah.
play. It sounds like that is like really your main tenet in the work
Mhm.
that you're doing.
Yeah. So you can just cut through the noise, figure out what works for you instead of wasting like 6, 8 months, 2 years, whatever it is. I mean, I've had people come to me, they're like, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years and I've done all the things and I need to do something different. And it's just, I hate that for you because we could have
Oh,
saved you so much time, and money and energy and effort, all of it.
so, for like, let's take IBS as an example. This is what I used to see and hear is, people, they get that kind of catch-all diagnosis. They don't really know what to do with it. But they're told to go on the FODMAP diet.
Yep.
And then, and that you mentioned earlier how sometimes it can be scary. Like people are literally afraid to add new foods into their diet. I would
Yes.
imagine it's fear of triggering those horrible
Yep.
symptoms.
Yeah,
So is
absolutely.
that what you're seeing still, like the FODMAP being kind of the go-to? And then
Yeah.
people staying on it like super restricted for years. Is
Right.
that the takeaway?
Yes, because it's like, and I don't like to throw anyone under the bus. It's just, there's different levels of training.
Sure.
And so people know what they know. And it's like, okay, hey, you go to GI, this is what you're told. Here's your, some people get like an anti-anxiety medication to calm things down, whether they have anxiety or not. And it's just, okay, yeah, here's the diet, just follow this. And it's like, it's meant to be temporary. So there's not that education piece. And I mean, when you have maybe, if you're lucky, 15 minutes with someone, I mean, there's only so much that you can do, because if you're
Yeah,
like MD, you're a surgeon, like you don't know what a dietitian does. You don't have the time. You just don't have that capacity. So
right.
being able to sit down with someone, and that's why I like the flexibility of being outside the insurance model, where it's like I can
Oh,
spend 75 minutes with my client and talk about whatever we need to. I don't feel rushed. And it's just such a different way that there's more freedom and flexibility. And I think people really appreciate that.
oh yeah. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that's probably the big thing with that particular diet therapy is that a lot of people just stay on it and
Right.
don't add in those foods, and it just ends up being super restrictive.
Hmm.
So, so definitely some misconceptions around like inflammation. And do you find that people know what inflammation is? Like, it's definitely evolved. I'm talking about like the lay person.
Hmm.
Do they, have a pretty good understanding in terms of what that means?
I mean, I think there's a little bit more, like if you're looking on social media, oh, I heard this on the news. Like I've
Okay.
taken anti-inflammatory, so I think I'm good. And
Yeah.
it's okay. I mean, there's other things that we can do besides that,
Yeah.
what's happening with your liver when you're taking all the Tylenol and Advil and all that kind of stuff. But it's just, oh, I don't really know. I know I've heard the word, but that's about as far as it goes. So there is that
Okay.
piece of education. And I think it's hard too when it's this kind of invisible thing. It's not like, okay, I
It
broke my arm.
is.
And so it's harder to grasp the concept of, oh, there's things going on the inside that I can't see that, yes, are making me feel the way that I feel. Yeah. So it's hard to
It
make that
is.
connection. It takes a little bit of just education, talking, having that explanation. And I always love a good like visual graphic to have really help, like leaky gut, when that comes up a lot. So that can be really helpful for people to get like, okay, I understand my labs look like this, and this is what it actually means. So
And can you explain, how do you explain to your clients that foods that are so-called good for you might actually not be so good for their neighbor or, another family member?
yeah.
How do you go about explaining that?
So really I start just with like my own family's story. So using the MRT, it's like,
Okay.
everyone has their own, microbiome makeup. We all have our own bacteria and whatever balance it is. And we all have our different, like some people are allergic to things, others are not. Environmental stuff, right? Like
Okay.
that kind of starts okay, I understand. Like, yeah, my, son has allergies, but my daughter does not, whatever it is, or, my husband, my grandmother, whatever. And so that starts to get that understanding of how you can be reactive to different foods, like why some people can tolerate, anything they want, and other people seem to be upset by anything. So
Mhm.
looking at it
Okay.
from that, everything is different for everybody. And then bringing out the personal story. I think like a personal story always resonates with people better. Like, oh, you actually get what it's like to struggle with X, Y, or
Oh
Z.
my gosh, isn't
So
that the truth?
yeah, like my husband, he couldn't have chicken and he's Italian and he couldn't have garlic. And that was just like, oh my gosh, what
Oh,
do we do?
that's a
But then,
total crisis, right?
yeah,
Oh my God, that's wild of all things.
right,
Um, that's a great example. Yeah, I always like to say like stories, well, facts tell, stories sell,
right.
right? They just resonate. They just
Mhm.
resonate. And it just, yeah, it just makes whatever you're talking about so much more memorable as well.
Right, right. It's like winning over the heart and then the mind.
Uh-huh.
There's a
I
reason
love
why
that.
those things are in that order. So it makes all the
So,
difference.
how do you approach creating that personalized plan for your clients? And, tell us a little bit about that process. So, I know you've got this 3-month program, which is great. So, I love, love, love that you are working in it. First of all, I love that you're in a cash model. Fantastic. Because like you said, it really does give you freedom to work with your clients as you see fit, right?
Absolutely.
Instead
Yep.
of being, controlled by, an outside entity. So there is that. And I know you've got the 3-month Digestion by Design program. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and just, how you go about creating that personalized plan for your clients?
Yeah, so starting with their health history, what does that look like? Pretty comprehensive. Just all sorts of things. What was, childhood like? I mean, where did you grow up? All those sorts of things that could come
Okay.
into play, like mold exposures, travel, whatever.
Mhm.
And then really getting into like current day habit. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? So there was a
Okay.
podcast that I had been listening to where it's like that mental piece of things really is like such the linchpin for getting people to change their behavior. What are their habits? What do they want to improve? So you might be here, but what does future you look like? And so I like to pivot, so many times people hear that phrase stress management, and that just it drives me crazy because it really implies like, yes, we have stress, like we have to accept stress and then figure out how to manage it like you manage your checkbook. And there's locally a life coach, she does tapping. And I've had some really interesting conversations with her about how, like, you don't have to have stress. So we're very much on the same wavelength, trying to figure out ways to collaborate to serve the community better.
Mhm.
So flipping that script from that stress management concept to inner management. And so perspective, mindset, habits, goals. Sometimes if someone is like, I'm really struggling with making these changes or even thinking about it, I know I'm ready, but I also know myself. So we'll maybe spend more time doing that in the beginning before we even get into the food. So it's really that
Okay.
have a good foundation and then move forward. And then whatever we need to talk about, if we need to pivot, and I think we're going to go down this path, but then you say something comes up and there's travel and we need to go down that route, then it is what it is. So we have like a menu of things and then we figure out what order we're gonna work on them in.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, and I really appreciate what you said about um, helping the client get clarity on what do you want your future self? Like,
Right.
paint the picture. What is that going to look like for you?
Right. Yeah.
And what is that going to enable you to do, be, or have in your
Right.
life?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and you might recall this from some of the work that we've done together, that whole concept is really an integral component of the way that I teach the
Yeah.
enrollment conversation, right?
Totally.
That's why I get really fired up about how awesome that conversation actually can be. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
dreadful, doesn't have to be
Right.
like, oh God, it's a sales No, it's
Mm-hmm.
so valuable if you look at it that way, because just like what you said, we're helping that client acknowledge the gap between where they are now, which is not in a good place generally,
Yep.
and but the thing I love is how you worded the future self. That is
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. I really like that. Um, Love, love, love that. So, yeah, and just, help them see the gap between those 2 points and,
Yeah.
and to encourage them that, you know what, I think you can achieve this.
Mm-hmm.
Probably they've just not heard anything very positive,
Right. Yeah.
over the
It's like,
years. It's
oh,
just, oh,
it's common. Right. This
it's
is what it is.
common. You got to live with it. It's like your new
Yes.
normal. Like
Right.
nobody wants to
Yep.
hear that, right? And so
Right.
when they
Yep.
hear someone like you, saying, let's talk about what life could look like for you. Oh my goodness, that is like,
Right.
it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice that you wish everyone would take, kind of like, like any words of wisdom as we start to wrap up today?
I mean, I think from the health perspective, it's really advocating for yourself. Like, you know your body best. And if someone, is telling you what you don't think is right, then second opinion. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like advocating for yourself, like
Yeah.
paper and person, when they don't match, like there's something there because your gut, your intuition, like that's so powerful. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
get get the second opinion if you need to, or the third, or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
you don't want to go until you find someone that just gives you what you want to hear, but it's more that like validating of like, I
Get
feel like I'm
answers.
being heard, right? Not just, well, it's common. So that doesn't
Yeah.
make it normal, right? Like that's the new phrase. So that I think just that advocating for yourself, like trust your intuition, that internal guidepost.
I love that. Yeah, I would second that for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Keep going
Right.
is the moral to the story. Yeah, because there's a lot of situations where, yeah, you just don't get, like, you have to be really tenacious to get the answers that you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Yep.
yeah, encourage people to do that as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where we can send our audience to learn more about your work. So you've got your website, and I downloaded one of your freebies today. I'm super excited about that. What do you want to share your website with everybody in case they want to go check
Yes.
it out?
Yeah, so that's Digestion by Design. So there's a couple free
Okay,
resources there right now, the
great.
anti-inflammatory menu being one of them, or the inflammation, the 60-second health check, I think I have it called. So
Yeah.
that's one of those just kind of check marks as far as all of the inflammatory symptoms that can be traced back and
Okay.
check that out.
I downloaded your anti-inflammatory recipes, so
Mhm.
excited to try some of those. Okay, so it's digestionbydesign.com, right?
Yep, yep,
Okay, I love it. And then, yeah, give Kate a follow on Instagram so you can go and visit her on Instagram at Digestion by Design, same name.
yep.
So, okay, great. This has been wonderful. So interesting. Love that you're implementing, you've got your program, your website is beautiful. I just want to recommend that anyone watching this replay go check it out because it really exemplifies, I think, just so many um, good points on, especially on the website. I was really excited to see, the freebies and that you're working in that cash model and really moving your clients into like a program format
Yep.
successfully. So
Yep.
really love to see all that. So, okay. All right, guys. So we are going to go ahead and wrap it up for the day. Thank you so very much, Kate. Really appreciate your willingness to come on with me and chat and share your insight. Super valuable and very enjoyable, I might add as well. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, let's do it again. All right,
Okay.
guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Bye for now.